Today I'm going to be bringing you my top tips on how to master the pro mode in Once Human. This is going to be for all of your combat needs when you are doing the pro mode bosses, when you're doing the pro mode silos, when you're doing the pro mode Leah research facility, and all of that good stuff. It's going to be things that are going to be generally helpful throughout the game and certain things that you need to know when you are going into the pro mode fights. If you find this video useful and informative, please do drop me a like and a subscribe down below, and without further ado, let's jump into it. So to cover all bases here, of course, you have the basics of the stuff, which is the gear itself, and with that you have the calibration and the mods. Higher tier and higher rarity weapons do more damage. Of course, higher calibration as well gives it more damage. And the fact that you can change the calibration attributes by going onto any weapon and clicking replace calibration attributes. This will allow you to get a different style. So you can see portable style here, which gives me mobility. You can swap it out for different ones here. Again, if we go over to this one, I've got the rapid shot style on here. I could change this to a rapid assault, or I could change this to a heavy assault, etc. So this is going to be the basis of where your damage comes from. Now, one thing that you need to know in pro mode is you are going to have to repair a lot, especially when doing the LEA research labs or the Leah research labs, because this is essentially a raid. As you can see from the gameplay, there's a lot of fighting going on. There's lots of bosses you have to clear in several different sections. Now, the nice thing is once you reach a checkpoint, which it does tell you as you're going through this, there is 4 of them, you can go out of the dungeon and come back in at that given checkpoint. So if you and your team need to go out and repair, you can always return to the dungeon at the latest checkpoint you've unlocked. Once you get to the final boss battle of this facility, you can of course just respawn at the beginning of this boss battle, or go out of the dungeon, repair, craft more ammo, or whatever it is that you need to do, and then come back into the research facility at that point at the beginning of the fight. So it is quite a nice little feature that they've got here, but you are going to need a lot of repairs. You're going to need a ton of ammo, a lot of meds, and also some tacticals, which we're going to touch on in just a moment's time. Now, one crucially important thing with the weapon you're using, whatever style of build you want to go for example, here I have gone for the shrapnel build. You need to make sure that you understand how your weapon proc works, and what I mean by that is how you're actually going to get shrapnel to work, or how you're going to get burn to work, or frost vortex, or whatever the case may be that you've chosen, how this is going to work. Now, shrapnel works off crits. You can see here 4% chance to trigger shrapnel with a hit. Crits count as 2 hits, so of course then that's going to be based off crit. Crit hits grant shrapnel trigger chance +1 for 1 second, and shrapnel crit damage plus 30%. So basically I have built my entire setup around critical hits and critical damage. You can see with the calibration attunement, I went for rapid shot style, which gives me fire rate, reload speed, a little bit less attack, but then it has got crit rate doubled on there, so I've got a very nice about 14% increase, which is really good. And then the rest of the gear that I've gone for as well, we've of course got the beret on, but then we've got 4 pieces of falcon, which gives me crit damage. It gives me crit individually on the mods, and then on the boots here we've got the heavy duty for a little bit more max HP. So understanding how your weapon and the weapon proc that you've got will work will net you a huge amount of damage, and means that you can scale it nicely so that you can actually clear these bosses pretty quickly and not have too much trouble with any pro mode sections of the game. Tons of builds on YouTube. I already have one up on the channel, and I'm going to be producing more of them very shortly when I work out how to master all these different ones, and I'll put those up for you guys. But there's lots of good stuff here that you can choose from, and basically any of them are good. I think the only one that I've found so far that's not great is Bounce. PvP, you're looking more at the Jaws Desert Eagle here, which gives you Unstable Bomber, or one of the snipers there for PvP. But for PvE, you're looking at maybe the Frost Vortex build, which you can actually do with the Icy Rain KV, which is pretty nice. You can get a Power Surge build with the MP7, but you can also get a Power Surge build with the purple SOCR, which both of those are good options. Like I said, I'm using the SOCR Last Valor here, which is the shrapnel build that you can use. You can also pick up a burn build with the KAM purple there, but it's much better with the golden LMG. And you can also pick up a Frost Vortex build with the KAM gold version, the Abyss Glance. Like I mentioned there, the LMG, this is probably one of the best ones at the moment, the KVD Boom Boom. This has got the burn chance, and you can make probably, arguably, in my opinion, one of the best PvE builds in the game with this right now. It's got a huge amount of damage, and the way that you proc the burn, you can make some really good builds. I'm working on one for that right now, and it's very nice indeed. Now, when you are going into the boss fights, or any of the mini bosses, if you're doing the LEA or Leah research labs, and of course the silos, having something wanting to mark the enemies is going to be crucial. So you can have something like the recurve crossbow. This is pretty easy to get hands on with. Everybody can loot this, so you can get it, and it does mark the targets. If I just show you what this one says, of course, we've got the marking style here. On a weak spot hit, you'll inflict the bull's eye on a target. All weapons will get crit rate plus 30%. So you can see for my shrapnel build, this is really, really nice. You could, of course, run something like the bingo here, where this one's got the bull's eye on a weak spot hit as well. So that will also mark targets for you. And you can also then get the pet, the Mr. Wish pet. This guy will, of course, mark them with the bullseye. The reason for wanting to mark targets is because the bullseye will inflict vulnerability, which means you do more damage, and in turn, therefore, kill the bosses and the enemies quicker. So this is a very, very must-have crucial part to these new promo dungeons and silos, etc. So definitely have that. Now, you could have Mr. Wish, you could have the wolf pet here, the Lone Wolf's Whisper. You could have some of the other deviants that you can have, maybe the Mini Fester over here, or Mini Feaster. Now, these guys are all really good for combat, but by far and away, the absolute best pet I have found for promo dungeons is the Festering Gel. Now, bear in mind, I have only got a skill rating, activity rating 1 and 1 for the Festering Gel right now. I really need to farm up a better one, but this is still the best pet, because when you deploy it, what happens, you'll see from some of the gameplay here, is he actually heals you up. Provides some cover as well if you crouch behind it, but the main thing is it heals you up, and it also heals your sanity depletion, which is really, really important for a lot of these fights, as there is a lot of sanity reducing effects that you can get, and it's great for extra and cheaper healing to save you constantly building more and more activators, quick activators, etc. So this is a really, really good option, and I would always recommend running the Festering Gel. The other one that you could run in pro mode, if you've got a particularly good team setup and you know the people you're playing with, other people are running the Festering Gel, is Dr. Teddy, so he can go around and revive people, but I certainly recommend the Festering Gel as kind of a priority pick. Next then, we're looking at ammunition. Run steel ammunition. It's more than good enough to pump out a very, very high amount of damage. As you can see from the damage numbers I'm hitting here, it's very, very decent, and it's a lot cheaper. You're not going to be spending tungsten, which of course requires acid in order to be able to make it, and you're going to be running through tons and tons of ammo. I mean, literally, if you do an LEA research lab or a LEA research lab, you're going to be going through from start to finish maybe 5,000 to 6,000 ammo, depending on what gun you use. But on this SOCR, I was using about 5,000 to 6,000 for one run, maybe even some more than that, because I did refill in between. So you're going to need a lot of it. Just use steel ammo. It's more than good enough, unless you're really, really struggling and you need some extra damage output. You're going to be fine with that. Alright, so tacticals. Now, tacticals are going to be really good for damage, of course, things like Molotovs and grenades, but we're going to touch on Cradle override perks in a moment's time, and some of these require you to throw a tactical in order to boost your damage, so make sure you have got something you can deploy there. Additionally to this, the Stardust barriers, pretty early on in the skill tree in terms of the Mematics skills, but these are also really, really useful for blocking some of the projectiles the enemy bosses throw at you, particularly in the LEA research labs. This has been useful, so definitely bring some of these with you. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of effort when you need some shield, particularly if you're trying to revive a downed teammate or something like that. You can pair them nicely with the Festering Gel and get a really cool setup. Alright, so the Cradle override perks. Now, if you're running a shrapnel build, you might want to copy or take some inspiration from mine, but adjust it to your setup. But essentially what you want to be doing is running everything that boosts your weapon and then some survivability. So I've got damage plus 20% when using SMGs, rifles or LMGs. Of course, mine is a rifle. Reload 10% of magazine capacity from reserve upon defeating an enemy. It's a nice bonus. We've got Deviation Master. Having it fight alongside you grants damage plus 50% against deviants. This, when you put down your gel, it's going to heal you, and it's going to give you a 50% damage boost, which is huge against the boss. Is really, really helpful. This one here, Master Tactician, after using a tactical item, damage against great ones or the bosses plus 25% for 15 seconds. So if you pop down your deviation, throw a tactical and then go ahead and shoot it, you're going to be doing, instead of 800 to 1200 damage, you're going to be doing huge bonus, and it's going to make sure that you melt these bosses really, really fast, particularly ones that are based around mechanics, so they've got a short window where you can do the damage. You're going to be getting that done nice and quickly. Also then I've thrown on Rapid Aid. This is of course going to give me the cooldown on the healing items reduced and their efficiency increased by 15%. Tactical combo, weapon damage plus 25% for 4 seconds after switching or reloading, mainly for reloading, but of course when I mark an enemy with the crossbow and then switch to my main weapon, this is of course going to give me a damage boost too. And then we've got movement speed plus 5%, running stamina cost minus 15%. You're going to want to be moving a lot, again, especially in the research lab. So this is great. Deadly combo after hitting a weak spot with bullet effects, which is bounce or shrapnel. Of course, I'm running the shrapnel build. Bullet effect damage plus 25% for 3 seconds. Again, gives me just that nice little boost. And then finally, bullet hunt after killing a target with a ranged weapon. Shrapnel damage plus 35% for 15 seconds. You'll notice from some of the gameplay you're seeing throughout this video, I'm often killing the adds or the additional enemies that spawn in. For those that are not familiar with the term, it means like the kind of regular mobs that the bosses spawn in order to try and attack you and damage you and make you go down. So the regular sort of deviated mobs, I'm killing them in between all of my boss damage just to make sure that I've got that extra proc of damage up there as well for the shrapnel. So once you've found a build that you like, you of course want to try to start to upgrade the blueprint if you can. You can see in the bottom left icon of each weapon or each piece of armor what type it is. So for example, the SOCR Last Valor, you can see there it says Beyonder, and you can see on the right hand side how many different fragments you have for that weapon. So for example, I have 20, but if I go into this, because I actually have the version of the weapon itself, that gives me double, and because it's legendary, it gives me 30 each, so double 30, and then 10 of them, that's going to be 600 XP towards there. But you can see that is not quite enough to level it up to a full level 2 blueprint, unfortunately. What leveling it up does is give a base damage increase, so it's going to be really important when you can do it, but I think this is more of a cross-seasonal thing. But if you are able to get some pumped out, then that's going to be really, really nice for that additional damage on there as well. But it is, of course, going to mean you're going to have to recraft your weapons in order to get that. So final tips then, make sure you bring a ton of ammo. I literally recommend 8 to 10,000 if you're doing the research labs, and somewhere between 4 to 5,000, maybe even 6,000 for the regular silos and bosses. Make sure you don't run out, essentially, is the theory behind it. Bring a ton of meds as well. I like to run about minimum of 60 meds. You can see on my hotbar currently I've got 34 and 30. I'll probably top that up before I go into the next fight, but I also have some long-lasting quick activators which are not on my hotbar now, so I've probably got about 80 meds. Make sure you bring in food and water so you don't run low on either of those, and of course bring food buffs to make sure that you get an increase in your damage there as well where possible. Make sure you've got your tacticals with you and you're stocked up on those, and bring the festering gel to maximise both your damage and the fact that you're going to get some cheap and effective healing whilst you're in the fight. If you found this video useful and informative, please do drop me a like and a subscribe down below. I really appreciate that. It massively helps out me and the channel, and other than that, I'll catch you again very shortly in a brand new Once Human upload. So take care and peace.